morning and welcome to this installment of the Esri Fire webinar series entitled Modernizing Your Fire Department with ArcGIS Online. My name is Chris McIntosh. I'm the Director of Public Safety Industries at Esri, and I'm joined by Jeff Barani, the technical lead for both emergency management and the fire industries. We're happy to have you with us today. The purpose of this webinar series is to share best practices and developments with GIS and the fire community's use of GIS with you on a routine and ongoing basis. We talk about how the use of location information has really become prevalent across fire agencies in making decisions and making better plans and better use of resources. We're going to talk about trends that we're seeing in the fire industry globally, and talk about how to overcome some common information challenges that you may face. We're going to talk about common information products that are available and they're easy to implement with some configuration, and they're all available to you through our solutions. And then Jeff's going to show you some of the ArcGIS for local government fire service solutions and kind of demonstrate some of those for you. Finally, we're going to do a recap of the recent International Users Conference and the National Security Summit. If you weren't able to attend and join us in San Diego, you'll get a brief summary of what was talked about there, and maybe you'll be able to join us next year. And then next steps, so the next one of these, when we're scheduling the next one of these recurring webinars, and some resources that you can take a look at between the webinars. So the purpose of the webinar series is to provide you updates on using ArcGIS to support fire and emergency services. We have this regular cadence of webcasts that you can plan for and hopefully block out this time so that you're available, because we think these are a pretty valuable hour. And the next one of these webinars will be in October. Topics can vary. They can be broad, or they can be very specific to a solution or a particular application. Please let us know if there's something specific that you want to hear about or a problem that you're trying to overcome, and we will definitely consider that for a future webinar session. So on to today's topic, modernizing your fire department with ArcGIS Online. So major things that fire departments are grappling with is they're trying to improve safety, they're trying to reduce the loss and risk from fire. They're trying to improve and increase stakeholder engagement, and that can be other agencies, it could be the community, it could be the public, it could be decision makers who control budgets. They're all stakeholders in this enterprise. Providing continuous situational awareness both before and after an incident occurs, so identifying threats and hazards, identifying when an incident is occurring, and then providing responders that situational awareness both on the fire ground and back in command level areas. And improve public perception of what the fire department actually does. We're in an era of competitive budgets, we're in an era of information moving through social media very, very quickly, and it's really important that the public perceives fire and fire department activities in a positive light and has an understanding of what you're doing so that they're supportive of your efforts. One of the ways of doing this is using GIS as a system of engagement. We use this term system of engagement as a way to get people to interact and understand your information. Many of you have systems of record, such as a RMS system, where information is kept, and that's your authoritative source. But this GIS allows you to use that authoritative information and get it out to people who can use it dynamically and interact with it, whether it's in mobile areas or in decision making or briefing. GIS allows you to use that information in a variety of ways that can quickly and effectively allow people to visualize and understand that information and make them part of your community as you're all starting to work together. So this system of engagement term is very important, and it's kind of a new role for GIS, or GIS has kind of grown into that role, because the ease of use of the applications and the solutions that you're going to see in the course of this presentation allows you to put something in the hands of somebody very quickly and effectively, where they can interact with a more complex system of record and understand the data that's in it without having to have the training and the in-depth technical understanding that it may require. So, as I said, is your authoritative knowledge that's in that system of record reaching your entire workforce? Is it getting out in the field? Is it affecting people on the fire ground? Is it affecting people in response? Is it affecting people that are maybe only tertiarily connected to your agency? Is it, let's talk about budget people, planners, other supportive organizations that maybe are not part of the fire department but support fire department activities. How are you getting that information out? And that system of engagement is a very, very good way of doing that. Key business units that we see in the fire organizations, and many of you already know this, but you have your management and administrative folks, and they have certain set of roles, responsibilities, and needs for that authoritative information. The public information officers, different set of needs. They're trying to communicate with the community. So obviously that's a very geospatial driven type of a process. Where are things happening? Where are we putting new fire stations? Where are we implementing mitigation techniques, those kind of things, and that leads into community risk reduction and actually working on those kind of things and communicating that. The planning people are working on not just response planning, but long-term planning or even cooperative planning with other public safety organizations, and that could be anything from planning for response to major incidents, or it could be planning for a special event. And we'll see an example, talk about an example of a fire department managing a large special event here in a little bit. Operations, the actual doing and the tactical efforts that the operations folks are doing, responding to incidents and executing special events. And then what the fire marshals are doing and the investigatory processes that go along with that. So all these are doing different things, but they all are leveraging information from each other and all need to share information across these lines. And using a GIS is a really good way of allowing that collaboration to occur. People use maps a lot at work, but maps can be a double-edged sword. Sometimes the map can create more confusion when the map generated does not have authoritative information. And the only thing worse than no information in the decision tree is bad information in the decision tree. So it's very important to validate ahead of time your workflows, your sources, who's responsible for providing information and identifying where that information comes from. One of the examples that I dealt with personally, and my background's in emergency management primarily, is we had one place that we all agreed that we were going to use for modeling plumes. Many places out there will do a plume model for you, but we decided that this one was the one we were going to use. The plume model was our system of record coming from that organization. And then we put that into our GIS mapping, and that became a way for people to interact with it. So those kind of pre-planned decisions are extremely important so that you don't get bad information into the GIS and into the applications that people are using. And once it's in there, it's going to be really hard to fix. So can't overstate the importance of the pre-planning about information sources prior to implementing these kind of capabilities. Multi-jurisdictional coordination is one of the biggest trends that we're seeing. And we all are living in an era of limited resources and increasing demands. So the ability to coordinate resources across county, jurisdictional, or other geopolitical lines is becoming a bigger and bigger deal. There's efforts afoot through the 911 community to go to a single homogeneous base map for the country and get rid of some of the PSAP boundaries. So this is really becoming an important thing so that the closest resource can be deployed to the closest incident, even if it's across a boundary that exists nowadays. So sharing information across these kind of boundaries, across organizations, across municipalities is a huge trend that we're seeing today. And using GIS to do that is really becoming the way that people are solving that problem. There was an exercise in the Midwest not too long ago where they connected 450 counties and through ArcGIS, and were able to share real-time information across 7 states. Departments are becoming more protection-oriented. Again, working harder to keep the bad thing from happening, trying to maximize the effective use of resources by employing them in protection activities, hopefully minimizing the number of response activities that you actually have to deal with. Our workforce is evolving. We have the generation of people who now have grown up with technology as a key part of their culture. So the iPhone, the Android generation is here. They're used to using devices. They understand how to use devices. When they need to go somewhere, it's not out of the normal for them to go to their device and get directions and routing to a place. So that evolution of the workforce is now hitting in public safety, and people want the same amount of capability that they use in their personal life and their professional life. And transparency, the need for government agencies to show what they're doing to the public is now greater than ever. A lot of this is driven by media cycles, but it's also been driven by the new cultural trend in our country of sharing information between the two, and the demands to share information between the public and private sector. So the ability to do that and be proactive about it is now more important than ever. So at work, what people really want is they want one system that's that they're able to use, that has no limitations on the user, that they can get to the information that they want, and we say 3 clicks or less, a flat training curve, not super complex and non-intuitive interfaces. They want something quick and easy. They want uniformity in their maps. They want them to look and feel the same so that when they pick it up, they know how to use it. Even if they've never used that particular application, they have an understanding because it has the same basic functionality embedded in it, which means at the end of the day, it's as easy to use as the devices they're used to using in their personal life, such as their iPhone, their Android device, and their tablet. So this is what people want nowadays, and they're driving IT, supportive IT organizations and agencies to that end. There's an increasing demand for authoritative mapping and location apps at work. One recent study from Pew Research Center, 74% of adults use their smartphone to get directions. I don't even think, I used to have one of those ones that you suction cup to your window. Those are really starting to go away because the smartphone is replacing them with the mapping applications that you can put on it. So that's just an indicator of how much a part of our life using mapping on a mobile device has become, it's really become a part of our culture. So public safety has kind of got to catch up to that in many ways. And that's because of this consumerization of IT. We now use IT for everything. I remember 15 years ago or longer, I got my first BlackBerry, and it looked like a pager and a monochromatic display and a keyboard, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Well, now everybody's got 1,000 times more processing power in their pocket, and they're using it for, as we know, social media. The devices can do so many different things. Applications are being rolled out every day that do new things and answer new problems, and we just accept it as is. So what that means is we have to take advantage of that in public safety to put that power, the decision-making power, in people's hands in the field, and give them the tools that they're used to using in their personal lives in order to be more effective and efficient in their professional lives. And here's an example of that in action. This is a damage assessment being done in Kentucky. This individual got about 15 minutes worth of training and was out there and able to use the tools and the applications very quickly, using a device that they're familiar with, using an application a native application to that device that had the same look and feel as applications they were used to using in their private lives, and able to go out there and perform a function that really improved the effectiveness of their organization. So this is happening everywhere. Another example, we'll talk a little bit about what happened in Henrico County. At the racetrack, they brought people in and gave them about 10 minutes of on-the-job training and download an app on their device, and they were off and running able to use mobile applications in the field because of the consistency in the way that these applications are being deployed nowadays with what they're using every day. So that's a big leap forward from the previous world of IT and applications where you had to do hours and hours of training and then retrain people so often so that they can stay current. Nowadays, things are all kind of seamless, so the training curves have flattened dramatically. 58% of the population nowadays owns a smartphone, and that number's going up. 87% use the internet, and the average worker has 2.8 devices. So that's just another example of how prevalent this is in our community and why we need to, as a public safety community, leverage that trend. Also, work really used to be a place. You would go to work, you would come home from work. When you came home from work, you left work behind. Not so true anymore. Work is now kind of where you are, and it's with consumerization IT and mobile applications, you can work from anywhere, you can respond from anywhere, you can communicate from anywhere. So that's a big change in our workforce. People have accepted that you don't need to necessarily be there to do work. I think many of us would say this is a double-edged sword because it's harder to get away from work, but it also allows us to more quickly affect responses to large incidents because you can begin communicating that situational awareness before people come into work. And that's speeding up response decisions, especially at the executive level. So for public safety community, this is a good thing. Organizations typically face a myriad of challenges, but the biggest ones when it comes to information are accessing information, discovering information, knowing it's out there. Once you've accessed it and discovered it, sharing that information in order to collaborate with other people, performing analysis on that information, and having systems work together to provide useful decision products. So the ArcGIS platform allows you across the different functions of your organization to do that, to find information and to do that collaboration through the different deployment patterns that we have, not only across the functional organizations within a fire community, within a fire organization, but also across the fire community at large. The integrated web platform of ArcGIS allows you to take that information off of multiple devices. It could be on servers, it could be on desktop, it could be online, and get that out to people on multiple devices. Any device, anywhere, anytime is kind of the mantra that you'll hear. This is a evolutionary leap forward, I would say, in the utilization of GIS. No longer is it the one guy who has access to the desktop can work with this information. It's now everybody across this web GIS community can work with information very quickly, and they don't need to necessarily be in the office. They don't necessarily need to be on site. They can be in different places, utilizing different ways to access the portal, which is the kind of broker of moving this information back and forth between all these sources and all these devices. ArcGIS enables every employee to easily discover, use, make, and share maps from any device, anytime. So that's kind of the point here. It's not just a function of the GIS staff anymore. We have many places now where decision makers are accessing, sharing, and even making maps in a way that wasn't possible just a couple of years ago. We take a second to talk about identity. Identity is your key to accessing ArcGIS, and it's extremely important. We get a lot of questions about named users and why we're so focused on named users, and this is really why. Your name allows you to access the information that you are allowed to access and not access information that's been determined you're not allowed to access. So access is determined at the individual level. Security is determined at the individual level. So a person may need access to one thing, and the ability to edit something. Another person may just want to have the authority to view things, and all of this becomes auditable. And we'll go back to a slide much earlier when we talked about bad information. When you're doing your AARs and looking at an incident afterwards, you're going to want to know who did what to what map, and having a unique identity within this system is extremely important. It also allows you to decide, I want to share this web map with the chief, but not with this other person in a different organization, to the individual level. So it's a function of accessing the system, of accessing information, but it also allows you to target sharing information out to individuals down to the named level. So it's very important. So the whole point of this is to empower the use of sharing maps anywhere, anytime, and get that system of engagement, get this information out to people very quickly and effectively. So to access information, here's an example of how in Richmond they were putting it out in a way that made it very quick and easy for people to find what they needed and access that information based upon roles and responsibilities. And then once you were able to access it, to get in there and look and find other information that you may need. One of the key components here is when you need to discover information, how do you know that information exists when nobody's told you? Where do you go to look for it? ArcGIS portal, for example, this is ArcGIS portal for fire and emergency services, will allow you to go in and look for that information very quickly and very effectively, so you'll know what's available to you and not. It also allows you a place to put your information so that you can put it in a place where people can find it and get that information into their decision products. Once you've accessed and once you've discovered that information, sharing that information is the next step. So the portal allows you to share that information. As I mentioned, the capstone exercise in the mid of the U.S., 450 counties had access to information across 8 states. So geopolitical boundaries don't become the barrier that they once were. You can share information through the cloud environment on the micro or macro scale. As I said, sharing it to individuals or groups on any device, anywhere, anytime. The next step in the process here is analyzing that information. Once you get that information coming in, you can perform your own analysis on it, or you can perform analysis and share the results of the analysis with other people. And this is one mapping fire stations and drive time analysis around fire stations. So you can do that work and share the results of that work with other people who may need it, or you can receive that information and do your own analysis in-house without affecting the source information coming from somewhere else. So that flexibility allows you to work with information very quickly and very effectively. And lastly is systems. So you've got all this information flowing, but you would need to bring in those authoritative sources, authoritative systems all together. And an example like this one, where you're bringing in CAD information, 311 information, GIS information, real-time sensor information, all coming from different systems, but you're able to build them into these web maps that are then shareable ahead of time, so you can look at dynamic situations very quickly, very efficiently, and share that situational awareness with your peers across the entire public safety enterprise. So this is getting much, much easier to do, and is now being utilized in many places around the world with great effect. So enabling people to work together, sharing maps, is this unprecedented level of collaboration that is allowing people at all different levels of an organization, from the chief to the lieutenant, to the guy on the firefighter on the fire ground, the PIO, all to collaborate from anywhere. They don't all have to be in the operations center. They don't all have to be in the command vehicle in a big incident. They don't all have to be on site in a fire ground, an incident response. They can be all over the place, but they're able to share all of this information in a real time, seamlessly, and communicate about it very quickly. And this has been a historical problem for public safety and fire in particular. But now the technology is all in place to allow this kind of thing to happen. The challenge for all of you in the community is to work on the standard operating procedures that drive how this collaboration occurs and make sure that they're well understood, so that when people are working together and collaborating, it's within a framework of good plans and policy. Analytical tools are becoming easier and easier to use. 3D tools are becoming more and more prevalent. Jeff's going to show you some examples of some analytical tools and ways to work with that. But the key to this is it's not nearly as complicated as it used to be. You can actually perform analysis on the fly pretty seamlessly now and get and share the results of that analysis with the rest of your stakeholders. So this integrated WebGIS platform allows your systems, your departments, your agencies to work together with information coming from other places, from weather, from traffic cameras, from leveraging authoritative GIS data like census and demographics, commercial available content like imagery, tied to your identity management systems, bring it all together, integrate it all to provide one system that everybody can use and is understanding, and provides decision products that are an authoritative source for making good decisions much more quickly than ever before. So bringing all that together, and one of the examples of how that came together can be seen in this video, and I invite you to take a look at this video. We're not going to show it because of the bandwidth limitations of doing a webinar. But in Henrico County, they took experiences from working with Esri at the Richmond Raceway, which is 400 acres of concrete with no addresses and 100,000 people twice a year, and have then taken that and expanded the lessons that they learned there to really revolutionize how they are doing their daily operations the rest of the year. And this video is a pretty good 4-minute synopsis of that journey, so I invite you to take a look at that. So with that, I'm just going to leave you with ArcGIS is now a complete location platform. It provides the mapping, the analysis, the data management, the collaboration, allows you to empower your users to use it, to get your constituents and your stakeholders involved, to support decision making real time, very quickly with information and decision products that can be accessed from anywhere, including at home if you have to wake up decision makers in the middle of the night. Allows you to get the field staff involved in real time, sharing information bidirectionally with command staff, and perform analytics on that information quickly and effectively, so you're not just have a bunch of stuff on a map, but actually have a question that's answered in a way that you can understand, and exchange all that data about assets and resources very, very quickly and effectively. So it's an exciting time to have access to all of this stuff and be able to work with it all. One of the key principles of this whole thing is what Jeff's going to show you is solutions that are available that sit on top of the ArcGIS platform. And the key to these is these only need to be configured. So you can download these solutions and these templates and configure them. No coding unless you have something really unique and absolutely can't be done. Then you go into a customization role, but that should be rare. And the important thing about configuring solutions and templates is that all of these solutions and templates are completely supported by Esri's technical support staff. We have, 2 o'clock in the morning, the thing breaks, you have somebody you can call. So that logistics train, that operations maintenance trail is behind all of these 100%, and we'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. So we've gone through a lot of work and effort to provide what we think are the answers to the test, and you just can configure them for your own individual use. There's 3 ways of deploying ArcGIS that are commonly used. First is on premises, which is completely housed within your organization. The second hybrid is a increasingly popular variant in public safety, and it's having your on-premise hardware like your server, but utilizing the capabilities of the cloud with either ArcGIS Online or some sort of managed services. This provides flexibility, it maximizes information sharing capabilities, but it also allows you to have the security of having some of your tools within your own infrastructure. And the third, and this is also very popular, is to offload all of that stuff and put the whole thing in the cloud. And that, when we say in the cloud, it's not just ArcGIS Online. You can, through managed services, have your servers and your GeoEvent processor, everything hosted in the cloud. And SaaS, as you see on that slide, stands for Software as a Service. So that is a pretty common deployment model, not just in public safety, but in the industry as a whole. So bottom line is, you want apps that work anywhere, any device, in the field, in the office, and you want them easy to use, easy to get to, easy to configure, and easy to deploy. So that's kind of what we're providing now, and in providing all that, we've stood up this entire infrastructure behind the scenes that I just talked about, where we have services people, we have technical support, premium support, we provide training, we provide consultants, project managers, technical advisors. All this Esri group of people is ready to back you up. And so when you guys should know, and many of you already do, when you're working with Esri, it's not just about the software. You get all of this as well. And unfortunately, the reason I wanted to put this in this presentation is not enough people know this and take advantage of it. So please do. There's a lot that we've thrown at you. There's a lot of solutions and templates and configurations that are out there. We have tried to kind of boil this down to what we considered initial operating capability, and we can talk more about what this looks like. This will probably be the subject of a future webinar specifically, but common information products are listed there on the right that we think that every fire department, fire agency out there should get started with. Hydrant inspections, pre-incident planning, special event planning, and so on and so forth. You can see the list. These are all off the shelf, so these aren't individual things that you have to buy. These are all off the shelf applications, tools, and templates, and many of which Jeff is going to show you here in just a second on how easy they are to work with and configure. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jeff Barani, and he's going to actually show you some technology stuff.
Great, thanks Chris, and good morning everyone. Yeah, I just want to take a few minutes here and now give a tour of some of the technology components that we've been talking about so far this morning. So the first place where this all starts is with the ArcGIS Online for Organization site. So as Chris mentioned earlier, this is kind of the main destination that folks can go to go and get some of the information that they need to help them do their jobs. So the first example that we want to talk about and show here is the Chief's Briefing Book. So the Chief of the Fire and Emergency Services Department needs to be able to develop, manage, and defend the budget requirements. So as a result, they need access to a lot of information at their fingertips. Using the story map journal that comes with the ArcGIS platform, a briefing book of common information products and common information needs has been configured for the chief. This is portable and can be viewed over the web or on a tablet. This can just be simple things like the fire station locations throughout the jurisdiction, clearing the pictures, or adding in more details such as the boundaries within the jurisdiction. Or looking at the different drive time analysis, in this case looking at one particular station, the 4, 6, 8 minute drive times. Perhaps the results of recent fire hydrant inspections could be configured and displayed here in a dashboard view accessible right through the story map journal. Or the results of more detailed analysis, for example, looking at the analysis of the change in percent of calls from 2015 to 2016 and seeing what trends may exist in the jurisdiction, in this case along the lines of percentage change, or perhaps incident density to show the concentration of calls, the results of any hot spot or cold spot analysis to see where you have any particular issues that may be emerging, a simple visualization of those clusters of calls for service, and then finally being able to look at things from kind of a community profile perspective and being able to understand the makeup of your jurisdiction along the lines of several demographic variables such as age, diversity, income, tapestry segmentation, or even social vulnerability. So these are just a couple of quick examples of how you can surface a lot of the information that exists within your department and how that can be accessible and presented to chief or the administrative staff to be able to understand from a GIS perspective some of the makeup and operations of their department. Now the next example that I want to show here is how we can start to kind of build that up and how to start to take a look at that. So we can look at this from a pre-plan perspective. So pre-incident plans are incredibly valuable for the firefighters to help them understand how to have a more effective response and improve outcomes. And historically it's been very challenging to collect and manage this information. So for example, here in our example, we want to take a look at the convention center, and here we can see some of the pre-plan information that's already been collected for this particular area. So really what we can provide through this template is a way to allow more folks in your organization, allow your firefighters to go out and collect and update this information. So for example here, we can see the palette of all of the elements that they can mark up on this map, whether that's alarm or control panels or building access or suppression systems or hazardous materials, access points, that type of thing. And simply with a couple of clicks here, we can mark any of the elements that we want to identify. And by working with experts in the user community, working with following national standards where possible, essentially really simplify and standardize access to this information by using drop downs and really focused information as we go out and collect this information to make it really easy to standardize this and make sure it's collected in a really kind of standard and simplified way. So just now really quickly, instead of having the GIS folks have to update and collect this information, we can now enable access in a much broader way across the organization to be able to collect and manage this information. So this is just kind of the collection part of all this. This can then be disseminated in other ways, either access to the services directly or perhaps a printed map or a PDF that may go in associated with the printed record here. But in this case, we just kind of wanted to illustrate how easy it is to be able to collect and keep this information up to date using the ArcGIS platform, and then later on you can use other ways to disseminate and distribute this as this makes sense and as is appropriate for your jurisdiction. Next, let's look at things from an analytic perspective. So it's important for the fire department to understand the response coverage as well as the impact of station availability so as to ensure adequate fire protection. Now this drive time analysis to better understand response coverage can be conducted on the web by a much broader audience. These tools are no longer exclusively available to highly trained GIS specialists. So here we're looking at 4, 6, and 8 minute drive time for station number 1 here in the jurisdiction. We can look at simply a station at a station individually, or we can look at all of them here together to get a sense of what the coverage is, where there may be any kind of gaps in service, maybe based on station availability, how that might be affected, and making sure we can provide an adequate response. But here we've just been looking at the results of the analysis that have been conducted previously. What I also wanted to highlight here is how easy it is to be able to generate this analysis directly here from the web. So using some of the analytic tools that come with the platform, I can run a drive time analysis here directly from the web environment and being able to look at the 4, 6, and 8 minute drive times for this particular station. Now that I can do this directly using the existing road network, or I've got the ability to leverage and look at additional, more detailed information, such as either live traffic or historical traffic conditions. Because obviously the traffic conditions at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning are going to be much different than 5 p.m. on a Friday, afternoon. So I can go ahead and run this analysis. We'll just take one or two credits, just a couple of credits based on the number of records that I'm running here. And now we're leveraging the cloud compute capabilities as well as the existing data that comes right along with the platform. And right here over the web, I'm able to run this analysis and without having to go and find GIS specialists that have, perhaps, the data that's needed. We really can broaden the access of running this type of analytics by leveraging the capabilities of the platform here to be able to, run this analysis. So this shouldn't take, too long here to run, since we just for one single station, and I'll be off and running with being able to generate those results. So now those results have come back here and are displayed to me, and I can get a better sense of how I'm able to provide coverage for this particular station in the existing boundary it serves. And this was the results of running the analysis based on drive times at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. Obviously I can run this again and look at different historical conditions, but really what we wanted to do here is to give you a sense of how easy it is to be able to generate this analysis on your own, and really quickly being able to conduct this analysis, and really how it's been able to be done more broadly throughout the jurisdiction. So the next example that we wanted to show and share with you is really kind of getting at looking at things from a smartphone perspective, and how we're able to, from a field mobility perspective, get information into, and out of the field. So in order to have a safe and effective response, firefighters need access to information on the current status and availability of functional fire hydrants in the jurisdiction. In order to keep this information up to date more efficiently, fire hydrant inspections can be conducted in the field using the ArcGIS platform. This information can be communicated and accessed across the organization, displayed in the operations dashboard. And then we use the collector application for ArcGIS as being displayed here on our smartphones, and we can use this to edit the information and keep it up to date. So we can simply touch or edit or poke at one of those fire hydrants in the jurisdiction, and now start to update some of the attributes for this particular fire hydrant, noting the condition, such as pour, and again, we're having drop downs used as much as possible to keep this information really easy to update. So we can say it's hard to operate. We can update the flow rate information. You can notice here it's forced it to be a number. We can also attach photos or videos right here with our inspection, and leverage the elements of the device and take advantage of those elements. Also, we can put Siri to work for us as well, and dictate any additional notes that we may need to communicate, such as maintenance required ASAP. And all this can be done here over a smartphone, and depending on whether or not we have connection, we can go ahead and update that information. If we don't have connection, the updates are stored, and we can synchronize that information later. So now that this information has been sent to the cloud, we'll see the updates that will show up here in near real time back in the operations dashboard, to show the results of the recent inspections. And you can see now that those updates have now been communicated, so they can be visible here in the operations dashboard, or as shown earlier, this information, including any of the pop-ups or attachments that we include, can be visible in the chief's briefing book as well. So we just to simplify showing that over the webcast, we shared that as a quick video, but here's where the results would display in the operations dashboard, such as this. That was just kind of one example from a field mobility perspective. There's many other configurations and templates that are available. This is the results of doing this from a fire safety survey perspective. So if you want to do the same type of thing and inventory information from the field using this particular template for smoke detector installations or whatever the case may be, that can be done and just kind of represent some additional capabilities of the platform. Next, we'll look at things from a public information map perspective. So if we did have an incident at the convention center here, maybe there was a leak or an issue with one of those hazardous materials that we talked about earlier, we can communicate that information to the public to keep them safe. What's the keep out area here that we need to, keep them out of, either, results of ERG, the Emergency Response Guide, or LOHA, whatever the case may be. Give a sense of where that keep out area is and what, roadblocks have been set up to keep people, safe and out of the area as the results of that particular incident and that information in the field. So, the point here is from a public information perspective and from a transparency perspective, the capabilities of the platform allow you to share information very broadly through your community to really help keep people safe. So this is just one example kind of from a response perspective, but also think about from a community engagement perspective, getting information out on various activities such as perhaps car seat installations or other public engagement activities that you may be conducting in your organization. This can also be special events and getting information out on special events and where parking may be set up or roadblocks or that type of thing. So constituent engagement or public information is another key capability that comes with the platform that I know that many of you are being challenged with and need to provide elements for in your work. And the final example that I just wanted to showcase here is how this can really all come together. Chris really it was really illustrating this in the slides and how the capabilities of the platform can be really focused on the mission, not these monolithic apps. We can provide very focused access to the information, and you may have privileges through your identity to access all of these groups, or maybe only specific groups that you have permission for. And now through this kind of interface, you get a sense of all the different information products that are accessible to you for you to go in, discover, use, and really get access to the information that you're looking for. So these are just some kind of quick, high-level examples that we wanted to share with you from a demonstration perspective on how you can leverage the ArcGIS platform to meet the needs of your and really help modernize the operations of your fire and emergency services agency today. So those are in demonstration form some of the elements that are out there and accessible to you. And we showed that through a demonstration. You wanted to as we're closing out here, highlight a couple things from some links. So there's a specific set of solution templates that we have as a part of our ArcGIS for Local Government collection that's specific for the fire service. So we'll make sure to send these links out to you. This gets generated. This gets updated all the time. It's got some of the standard elements that you might expect, like station wall maps or fire runbooks that we didn't show today. But also has more modern implementations, such as that hydrant inspection that we talked about, the fire safety surveys, and many other templates are available as a part of this collection. Some of the new updates that the team has provided recently is what they're calling community events. So this is kind of the whole workflow from permitting to operations for special events in your jurisdiction. And there's a specific set of templates that are now out there and available to be able to use in a similar way in the Enrico example that Chris talked about earlier. One of the other new templates that has also recently been added is the administrative area data management template. So to basically help you keep your jurisdiction boundaries, up to date, and some specific tools to help with that, particular workflow. So I just wanted to highlight here some of the new updates that have been added to this, collection over time. Many of you on the line and on the webcast today may already have access to Esri technology through existing licensing, through existing enterprise license agreements, and just we wanted to make you aware of some of the tools that you can leverage today with the software that you already may have access to. And so the really exciting set of templates here from our solution template collection, and you saw some of those in practice through the course of the demonstration. A couple of final things as we get here to close and before we open up to questions. You know, some of you may have joined us, you know, recently in San Diego, and we wanted to provide an update for some of you that didn't on some of the resources and things from the recent user conference and special National Security and Public Safety Summit that happened the weekend before the user conference. Many of the tech workshops and National Security Summit presentations will be posted shortly to the preceding site, and we'll be sure to share that link with you. The videos from the user conference plenary are already up and available, and some highlights, you know, below. The Administrator Fugate and FEMA won the President's Award and were honored for all of their work. And during the National Security Summit, we saw special events in action through a presentation on the reopening of the Panama Canal and how they use the ArcGIS platform to help them with this, you know, special event and track dignitaries, VIPs, and ships as they move through the Panama Canal during its reopening. Many of the photos have already been posted to Flickr already, and you can explore those as well. In our Ops Center presentations, we had specific public safety presentations for law enforcement, emergency management, national security, and fire, as you see here in this picture. And we shared with you some details and some visions on how to put this into practice, and we'll be doing this again next year. And then finally, we had a little bit of fun on Thursday afternoon through a special events workshop. So in a practical way, we applied the technology through essentially a scenario. In this case, to keep it fun, it was a Star Wars parade, a notional Star Wars parade in conjunction with Comic-Con that was happening a few weeks later, and we split up the groups to work on different areas of leveraging the technology. In the upper left, configuring an operations dashboard to view what's going on with the special events. In the upper right, from a field mobility perspective and getting input into and out of the field. On the bottom left, from a command perspective and configuring the story map journal much in a similar way to the Chief's briefing book as I showed earlier. And finally on the bottom right, you know, using the public information map to get information, as you see in the screenshot, out to the public and be able to share that with them, and not only being able to view that over the web, but also on smartphones as well, as this is as can be viewed in those environments as well. So those were just kind of quick examples from a recap perspective that we wanted to share. And so I'll turn it back over to you, Chris, to close us out and set us up for questions.
Thanks, Jeff. So the next steps is we're going to send out all the links and everything that was talked about in this webinar, so please explore those and go through them. We've been getting a lot of great questions on the chat that we're trying to answer as quickly as we can. So explore those resources and then let us know if it feeds any further questions or if you'd like to talk about specifics in your individual situation. Our next webinar, as I said, will be in October. We have not nailed down the topic yet, so if you have some topic ideas, please let us know and we will definitely consider those. Please contact us with any questions, ideas, or suggestions that you have stemming from this webinar or just in general, and our contact information is right there, and it will also be in the resources sent out to all the attendees. Please follow us on Twitter at GIS Public Safety. We put out a lot of information via that Twitter handle. There's also a Esri for GIS Facebook page. And it's a way to kind of stay engaged as things happen between our webinars, whether it's a big incident or a new best practice or an event that we think you might want to go to. It's a good way of getting plugged into an ongoing communications path. Next year, we're never too early to start planning. July 8th through 11th, 2017 in San Diego, the International Users Conference and the National Security and Public Safety Summit, which is the pre-conference, are going to be next year. The National Security and Public Safety Summit is 2 days of nothing but these kind of conversations, and we think that it's extremely valuable. So if you can come to that and then stay for the Users Conference, I think it's always a very good use of your time. So hopefully you can join us there. With that, we're going to wrap it up. I think we're answering everybody's questions. If we don't get to your question while you're here on the webinar, we'll get it to you via email after the webinar is concluded. Hopefully you found this useful, a useful hour. Hopefully you'll join us next time in October. Everybody, please stay safe in the important work that you're doing, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thank you very much.